A Clockwork Orange is a very bizarre, disturbing, and twisted movie. In a moment, we're going to be talking about two of the musical aspects. But first, I just want to say, the last one we did was back in December for this whole series, but due to scheduling conflicts, we could not get to this any sooner than now. But better late than never. And yeah, and with all that said, what's your first opening take on this movie?
As you said, it is disturbing. One of the reasons I wanted to choose this movie was because of the director, Stanley Kubrick, who, in my opinion, was probably one of the finest directors, at least of our era. Everything he's done has been very effective. He's used techniques that no one used before, either in terms of cinematography or even in terms of the how he moves plots forward and develops characters. In the 70s, this was
What are some of the techniques that he used that other people didn't really use?
So we actually see that now is almost looks like still motion, going from scene to scene to scene to scene to scene really quickly, going through action where you see normally directors tried to avoid you seeing the camera move, right? But especially with more modern movies like Taken, the Bourne series, where you see the camera move violently, almost during the...
Speaking of the technique that you're mentioning now, how the movie opens is like this wide shot of all that stuff there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And speaking of the director himself, I just want to say he did some movies in the 50s, but but it was mostly 60s to the 90s.
Yes.
But it's like a very 16 select movies. He's like other directors that did movies all the time.
Right.
He made it very
he made very clear
decision on when he directed.
Yeah, very deliberate decisions as to the type of movie that he wanted to, and the stories he wanted to tell too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he did do another movie from the 70s in 1975 or 6 called Barry something, but I didn't know what that was about. I never saw that.
Now, as soon as you said it, now I can't think of the name of the movie. Sorry, this is what happens when we do things off the cuff. It'll come to me.
Well, that's why I said try to get IMDb on something.
Oh no, it's fine.
Oh, it's fine. Okay.
Because I focused on Clockwork Orange.
That's fine. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The Clockwork Orange IMDb page, but it's okay. We're trying to do this off the cuff. That's fine. So the other thing before we move on to the musical aspect, I want to mention one last thing about the directing of Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
He's kind of connected with Batman's Joker in two different ways. Of course, he directed Jack Nicholson in The Shining, 1980's The Shining.
Right.
But then the more recent thing is that Heath Ledger's Joker was partly inspired by the Alex character of A Clockwork Orange.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Clearly, yes. You can see that Heath Ledger really took that particular characterization and made it his own.
He did really make it his own. So now let's jump for a sec to the musical aspects.
Yes.
So the thing I want to say about the music is two things. One, the one is that you and I both get enjoyment from classical music.
Right.
It still hasn't made you bothered by it, but sometimes when I hear classical music, even though I like it so much, the fact of the way that classical music is used in this movie is a bit unsettling. And
well, one of the things I think that in terms of the character of Alex,
it's like the main character.
Yeah, right. But he's almost evil incarnate.
Right.
Yet he loves classical music, right? And the connection that I made, if you talk about evil incarnate, is Hitler loved classical music.
Oh, Hitler
oh my gosh, yeah. And the Nazis, they actually they used especially Jewish musicians, interestingly enough, to perform classical pieces, piano recitals.
That's very interesting.
They, the Nazis loved classical music. They loved all, and yet, I mean, if you want to talk about real life evil, at least for me, I can't think of many more
That's a good
movements or people
that's a very interesting observation.
than the Nazis.
Very interesting observation.
So I don't know for sure. I can't say that, but I really
now the director himself, is he Jewish?
Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, is he Jewish?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I'm
don't
not
know. I
sure.
never investigated that.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter.
Right.
He sees
Right.
the dichotomy. He sees this evil character who enjoys this very cultured music.
Exactly. That's very interesting how the characters like that with that.
Yeah.
The second and last part thing I want to mention about the music before we talk about other parts about the movie is from like a few decades before that, there was this really cool little dancing around the dancer actor guide to how do you say it goes? Hold on, let me think for a sec.
I'm trying to figure out what.
I'm trying to think what it's called. Singing in the rain.
Oh yeah.
Oh, singing in the rain.
Gene Kelly.
Yeah, the Gene Kelly thing. And the Gene Kelly thing, that was pure how he was like singing in the rain, Gene Kelly. But with Alex, it's like the total opposite of that.
Well, yeah, because it's the irony of the character.
Right.
It's the irony that Kubrick is trying to show. Using and by the way, it's a device that's used often in movies.
Oh, what kind of device in the movie?
In other words, using this sense of irony, where you have a character who you wouldn't think who would be involved in such a lighthearted thing, and uses it for basically celebration of his own evil.
Absolutely, that's right. Yes. The other thing I want to mention about all that is I'm trying to think what it was. It'll come back to me. But you talk while I think of it.
Okay, so one of the important ideas I think that both in the book
it's mentioned about the book. Yeah.
But both in the book and the movie is the importance of free will and one's own determination of one's own goals and purposes.
Are there any major differences of what you're describing there, majorly between the book and the movie, or are they pretty much close?
No, I think Kubrick was pretty faithful to the book. I mean, you just couldn't tell the whole book in the movie.
Right, got you.
You only have,
The other thing I remember what I was going to say about the next thing is, this is being made and coming out in the early 70s. This came out in 1971. How would you say, for this movie and people seeing that there for the first time, as far as both the violence and the language and the things of that nature?
Well, coming out of the 60s, even with the civil rights movement and the demonstrations, and even some of the like the Democratic National Convention with the violence there, I don't think people were truly prepared for the intensity and graphic nature of the violence of this movie, and I think it really shocked people. Today, we probably wouldn't even, if you view it today with today's mindset,
and then it's
just another movie.
And then, exactly. And then part of the shocking was I don't know. Hopefully, it wasn't done more than once. Towards the beginning, the graping scene.
Yeah.
Next thing I want to mention is, I don't know how long the book is itself, but the movie goes a little over 2 hours. I think it's like 2:15, somewhere 2:20.
Yeah, by today's standards, it's a relatively long movie.
Yeah.
By standards back in the 50s, 60s, not at all a long movie. If you think about some of the classics, the Ten Commandments, Cleopatra, Ben-Hur, those movies were 2.5 plus. Some of them even had intermissions.
Right. The other thing I want to say was. The other thing what I want to say was that we talked about offline a bit ago, which is that, what was it? Hold on, let me think for a sec. That it was, this movie, it'll come back to me. Go back to some of your notes.
Oh, okay. I wasn't planning on referring to my notes.
We don't.
But I don't know that, do you really want to get into so much of the plot here?
Give
Because-
no, not too
just-
much, not too much. Just tell the
right.
audience a little small part of
Okay,
it.
so Alex, the main character, Malcolm McDowell, and I think it was probably his breakout role,
Right.
you know, back in the early 70s. But he's just pure violence, pure evil, as I said earlier, evil incarnate.
Question about
and he gets caught.
That's what I mentioned first. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that part of the story. Early on, he gets away with all this stuff, but
Right.
where's the part where how and why exactly, in what ways did he get caught at one point?
Okay, so he goes in. He murders this woman with a phallic, scepter or
Right.
whatever it was.
Right.
And he gets. And I'm trying to remember. I think one of his, in the process, he gets injured. And one of his droogs, his accomplices, actually hurts him even further so he can't escape. So they can escape and he can't. He gets caught. He gets thrown into jail. He's convicted for murder. And 2 years into his sentence, they come up with this idea of this, we would call it today aversion therapy, where he is, through various...
Are you talking about the eye thing?
Yeah, all the
Right, okay, 'cause that
all
was
the devices.
Right, because that was like a big part of it.
Right.
They had his eyes on the eye thing while they made him look at stuff to think about.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that was that's a big part of everything.
Right, and that's part of aversion therapy. It's misused in psychiatric settings, psychological settings.
And yet, right.
But he ends up being this very mild-mannered, and then basically in the end, he says, "I'm cured."
Oh, that's the end.
But we know he's not
Right.
really. We know he's not, because aversion therapy, even at its best, is not permanent.
Okay. Speaking of that aversion therapy part of him, I believe I read in the trivia about that
Yeah.
way after that movie was done, that he was still damaged from having to do that.
Yeah.
The actor himself was still damaged from
Right,
part of
and
that.
you can actually see it in some of his later roles, especially as he was getting older. You could see him like squinting in his eye a little bit, or just it didn't look quite right. But it made him. It made it work for him being the antagonist in a lot of movies.
Mm-hmm.
So
the other thing I want to mention that we said offline about this is that while he's like the main character and he's very bad in all those ways,
Yeah.
All these other characters are not much better at all.
and that's, I think, the point. The point is that I think that while Alex was evil, that even the quote good, the law enforcement was shown to be pretty evil as well, in a different way.
Right.
And again, I think that one of the main points is this idea of free will.
Yeah, let's go back to that again.
Yeah.
So this movie, one of the big themes you said is the free will. What
Right.
about free will do you think the audience exactly should know about it? Like about how that kind of means for
Well, okay, so if you're thinking about the movie, each one of the characters makes choices, right? And it's interesting that Alex is the one, through this aversion therapy, those choices are removed from him.
Okay.
And so the author,
Anthony something.
Anthony Burgess,
Yeah, that's it,
okay,
yeah.
and Stanley Kubrick, I think, really emphasized this, that the one character, at least one, all this freedom of will, these idea of making choices, it's removed from him. If he had served his sentence in full, he may have chosen to. He may have chosen to be a better person. But because it's forced, and I'll even say not forced, but foisted upon him, even though he makes the choice to do this aversion therapy, right?
Absolutely.
Right? So, but once that's removed from him, we never know really if he's quote-unquote cured.
That's a nice way of putting all that.
Yeah, we really don't know.
So,
So, yeah.
this came out in '71, but it was supposed to be taking place in the future. What year do you think this movie was supposed to take place in?
Well, at that point, you don't really know because it's they use the term dystopian society. It's this post-war, it's a society that is degraded, where basically good and evil are no longer viewed any differently.
Oh wow, okay,
You know,
interesting.
it's
Very interesting that way.
you know, what we now, in a quote-unquote moral society, determined to be good and evil, it's so shaded and jaded and so mixed up. And you see this, by the way, in any movies that imply a dystopian future, where good and evil
That's a nice way of putting all that.
are not viewed much differently.
Oh wow, that's a good way of putting all that.
Yeah.
Can you go a little bit more expressing about the whole psychiatry aspect about it all?
Psychiatric.
Yeah.
Okay. So psychiatry here is used as a tool of the law enforcement. I let law enforcement I put in quotes, right? And it's used to serve their purpose, not necessarily for the benefit of society, right? And again, because of the whole idea, the background of the story, is that you're living in a society where, as I said before, good and evil, the separation, the acknowledgement of that there's any difference between good and evil is almost removed.
And that's a nice way of putting all that. And for most of all the other characters outside of him, it almost seems like there's not almost one character you could say that's on that good type of level.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. You almost end up rooting for Alex at the end of the movie.
Right.
And you think where it starts and where it ends, how would you even consider that? There's really no one in the movie you can truly root for.
Exactly, absolutely. And like you said about the ending, we all know that he actually never really was cured.
Right.
He said it, but then you could tell from those last scenes.
So let me just...
Sure.
I just want to say something. So this just occurred to me. This movie, there's no real good guy.
Exactly.
Right. Whereas E.T., which... Sorry, I'm having a little problem here with my
It's
phone.
okay. It's okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay.
So, like the movie E.T., there's no bad guy. Think about it. The what they call, I think his name's called, the character's name is Keyes, the guy, the government. He's not really a bad guy. He really wants what's best, but it's just coming at it from a different standpoint. There's no real bad guy in E.T. Where here, this movie, there's no good guy,
Right.
And that's something, especially coming out of the 60s, the 50s, 60s, there's always a protagonist, there's always an antagonist, there's always a good guy and a bad guy, or female, good female, bad. But this movie, it's nobody you can root for.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So, once he agrees to the aversion therapy, he's stripped on a chair, his eyes are clamped open, and he's injected with drugs. He's forced to watch films of sex and violence, some accompanied by his favorite composer, Beethoven.
Right.
He's then nauseated...
I'm sorry,
Yeah. No, he's then
the Ninth Symphony,
Yes, especially. Is it nauseated and fearing he would be... he was sick upon hearing Beethoven. He begs for an end to the treatment. So this is all, and he agreed to this because of the minister. Let me just see. Now it says, he's unable to fight back an actor who taunts and attacks him, and becomes ill upon seeing a topless woman. The prison chaplain. Can you say the rest of this? I'm just trying to cover some of this.
Well, okay, I didn't think people needed to hear the plot from
Not
this.
the plot, but can you try to break it down in smaller details about what they're trying to say with this plot here?
Okay, so basically, his former droogs antagonize him.
Right. Wasn't it early on that the Droogs turned on him? It was pretty early on.
Well, they turned on him. That's when he got caught.
Right.
Okay.
And that was somewhat early on into all this, right?
Yes, that's
after they had gone to that house.
That's really the end of the first act.
Ah,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Then the second act is him in prison.
Right.
And then getting the aversion therapy. The third act.
Third act is what?
Is when he comes out of prison and he can't. He reacts negatively to sex, violence,
all that kind of
all
stuff.
that stuff. Right. And then he finally. He's at the end of the movie is I'm cured. But he's really not.
Not really cured, exactly.
Yeah.
I like the way you're describing all this about the movie. It's really like, I think it's helping the audience out with the way you describe all this.
Yeah. With today's eye, I think most people won't find it as violent, right? Because we've been so desensitized to it in today's world. So just as a cute thing,
sure.
I remember coming home one Saturday night 50 years ago and watching the first episode of Saturday Night Live. And I thought it was hysterical. I thought it was unbelievable.
Wait, when you say it came out in 75, what did you say when it came out?
What, 50 years ago?
Yeah, 1975, go ahead.
Right. So I watched it again. I haven't seen it since, right? Mm-hmm. I watched it again when they aired it, a few weeks ago before the, before the anniversary show, right? And I said, "Wow, I thought this was funny," right? As we grow, as we change, things that we thought were funny, scary, horrific, can often change just based on our worldview changing. And
that's a nice way of putting all that. I want to comment just two things about Saturday Night Live. One, for me, I liked it in the early 90s, and in my opinion, after the early 90s ended, and then it was like mid-90s to the 21st century, I thought that's where it really dropped off after the early 90s for me. And as far as the first episode is concerned, the first ever episode was hosted by George Carlin.
Right. Right, and Janice Ian was the musical artist, and I just didn't find it the same. It didn't resonate with me the same way it did back in 1975. So
this is one of those two, exactly.
So in terms of Clockwork Orange, that's what I'm saying. The violence that we see, especially in the opening scenes, and especially, it opens like with it's. I don't think the way I experienced it when I first saw the movie back in the 70s and the way our audience, you might experience it today will be the same.
I think it's one of those type movies where one viewing of the entire movie is like enough. You don't want to watch it more than once. Now, speaking back to the director, since Kubrick directed this movie, what did you think of the 1964 one called Up in the Sky, with the comedy of the bomb, something about the
Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, what did you think of Dr. Strangelove?
I love that movie. And again, the irony of comedy interspersed with the seriousness of nuclear warfare was not just clever, it was genius.
Very nice the way you put that.
Yeah.
I told you for the Spartacus that he directed that to have star Kirk Douglas for Spartacus. And what did you think of 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Loved it. I first off, again, his use of classical music in the movie, and again, I had read the book prior to seeing the movie, so there were certain things that I understood about a movie that a lot of people who hadn't read the book.
Got you.
So
now speaking of the music real quick again.
Yeah.
Since I like classical music, my notification sound for notifications on my phone is for Elise.
For Elise, yeah, sure. Yeah.
I also like that's for my phone, but outside of my phone, as far as all that's concerned, I also like Moonlight Sonata.
Right.
Both
great piano work.
But back to one more thing about this music from earlier again, the Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
Maybe the classical music's not ruined, but every time you hear Singing in the Rain, those two different ways.
I still see Gene Kelly. There's very few very few things that if I see it in a movie or you see it used in a different way where I don't go to the original.
Right. And
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
for me.
Right, that makes it in that way for you. The other thing about this movie is it came out in '71, but I think in Britain it was banned till like 2000.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Something along those lines. They couldn't
right.
catch it till like 2000.
Right. First off, I think because it takes place allegedly in Britain of the future, and the Queen was very sensitive to things like that, so it was probably not a good idea.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We're now a little bit over 25 minutes in.
Really?
Yeah, we're a little bit over 25.
Seems shorter time for me.
Does it?
I hope it does for you as well.
Right, exactly. Now we're a little bit over 25 minutes in. So, what else that we haven't yet spoken about do you think the audience should know about A Clockwork Orange? That we yet haven't spoken about.
I don't know. I can't think of much else. And I know somebody out there who might be a great aficionado of A Clockwork Orange might say, "Well, you didn't mention this," but can you
get on your phone real quick and go to IMDb's Clockwork Orange, see if there's anything we missed?
Oh, I think we covered.
We covered most of it.
Oh yeah, we covered the
whole lot.
We
went over the plot. We talked about Alex, the main character.
Right.
We talked a little bit about the story.
Right.
We talked about the first, second, and third act. We
Right.
talked about music. We talked about the director.
Right.
Anything else that we haven't spoken about?
Well, so interesting. I just think this one thing, because Beethoven's Ninth Symphony figures so prominently in the movie. The symphony itself was sketched out of this idea of joy, right? And when Beethoven his first sketch of this actually became the choral fantasia, which is.
And you're saying this stuff was also used during Hitler's time?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This music, Wagner especially.
Okay.
Yeah, but but it's I know it's the loose translation, but joyful, we adore. It's about praise of a spiritual nature. And Beethoven,
but then this movie just makes it
turns it on its head.
Turns
it on its head, and then up is down. Sort of like the world we live in right now. Up is down.
That's a nice way of putting that too in this world now. If you had to give this movie a grade, a rating, what would you grade this?
If you're like 1 to 5, like 1 to 5 stars, you want to say?
Let's start with stars. Sure, 1 to 5 stars.
I would say 4.5 stars.
4.5 out of 5?
Yeah, and the only reason I don't give it a full 5 stars is just because the subject matter for me is really
right. And then how would it be like a letter grade?
Oh,
I would A B C D F.
Oh. A minus.
A minus?
Yeah, A minus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you had said, this is not the type of movie people should want to watch more than
yeah, I know. It's like there are movies that I'll put in my library because I do want to see them over and maybe see something I didn't see. I saw this movie twice before I saw it in preparation for this.
Oh right, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I had only seen it twice before, and because I knew there was stuff I wasn't getting. And the reason I didn't watch it again after that is because I then read the book.
Right.
And then...
are there any major differences between the book and the movie?
Not really. The book offers obviously more detail, more character description, more in terms of the setting. But
I know you said it didn't matter, but from my research, somewhere in the lineage, there's some kind of connection of Kubrick and Jewish, possibly. I think there might be a little bit.
That's something I can't say yes,
right.
I can't say
we don't
no.
know for sure, yeah.
I know he was a great supporter of Jewish causes.
Of Jewish causes?
Yeah, so that I do know.
Okay. At least the Jewish causes part, that's nice. Yeah, and now his last film, he only had one movie in the 90s, was 1999's Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut.
What did you think, real quick, of the war movie, the 1987 movie Full Metal Jacket? What did you think of that real quick?
That was a great movie.
Okay.
And I love the fact, I'm trying to remember what it was. He had a peace sign on one helmet and I forget what the other thing was, like a skull and crossbones. I'm trying to remember what it was on the other side of the helmet. And I thought that was such a perfect description of how we feel about war in general, especially war in modern times.
Hello?
Oh.
Hi.
Hello?
Hello?
Can I come in?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's shut
I'm
it down.
sorry. I just wanted to drop off your Kiddush cup while I was in there doing the inventory.
The Pesach Kiddush Cup.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you. I'm
thank
sorry.
you.
I
Thanks,
apologize.
Thank you. So, at this time, now that we're almost just about to get 30 minutes in, and we've spoken a whole
Yeah.
deep dive into most of it, what are your final thoughts and opinions on A Clockwork Orange?
I think the premise was well thought out.
Not really well thought
and
out.
trying to communicate the message of, like, as I said at the beginning, the message of how precious free will
Free will.
is. Yeah,
Free
freedom
will.
of choice.
Now, I got a question
and
about
it can
that.
be taken away from us all too easily.
Way too easily.
Yeah.
Speaking of free will.
Oh, by the way.
Sure.
And this is really important,
Oh, sure,
especially in the times that we're living.
Sure.
And it can be taken away from us with our own consent.
Oh, with their own consent, right. Right.
Right?
Got you.
So
Now, I have one more thing to say about free will. Now, if God already knows everything we're all going to do,
Right.
every year, day to day, year to year, and we have that free choice to make it, but He already knows we're going to do it. Like, is that really free will? And God knows what we're going to do from
Okay.
now early childhood
all right.
till.
So there's a 12th century commentator, 11th, 12th century commentator by the name of Moses Maimonides.
Okay.
In Hebrew we call him Rambam, but he's
This is some Jewish history. for you.
Jewish,
History.
and the reason I bring him up is because I think he had a really good explanation. First off, we have choices we can make morally, right? That's where freedom of choice comes in. But ultimately, the way he put it was that, assume you're on, let's say, we're coming from here in Bucks County, and we need to go to Center City, Philadelphia.
Okay, that's a good example.
Okay, so we could take Route 13 all the way up. We could take I-95. We could take the Boulevard, Route 1. There's many ways for us to get to Center City. That's the choice we have. God knows where we're going to end up. But the choices that we have are how we get there, right? Is it going to be an easy ride? And for you, an easy ride might be the Boulevard. For me, it would be 95, right? That could be, but so everyone has freedom of choices how we're going to get to our ultimate destination. And it's people who try and deny that ultimate destination, deny our purpose, the road we travel, the people that try and deny that, those are the people I think that have the most difficulty in their lives, and for me also in the world to come.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I like how you put that in the our times, the whole consent thing was just kind of just giving it away to a certain extent of the free will.
Yeah, we can, if we choose to give away our freedom of choice, that's on us,
Right.
and we have to be very careful.
Got you.
Right.
I hope this is so much deep stuff in here. I hope the audience can take it all in.
Well, Clockwork Orange is not a superficial movie. Matter of fact, I don't think any of Kubrick's movies are superficial.
Absolutely.
There's always a second and third message other than the story and the plot line.
Now,
in
exactly. For anybody watching this, if this is too sad and serious, later down the line we'll be getting to more comedic type things. But
Yeah.
we have 2 more dramas after this. So if you guys enjoyed us talking about this, in the next episode we're going to be talking about 1975's
One Flew Over.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
Which is
brings
I call it a dramedy.
A dramedy.
Because it's drama, but it's got some really funny pieces in it.
Well, I want to hear the funny pieces when we get to
Okay.
that.
All right.
So we're going to be doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson next. So look out for that, coming soon to a screen near you. Support your local movie theater, in this case AMC for us. Support your local movie theater throughout the decade of the 2030s to be an experience with a bunch of strangers like no other. Why? Because streaming movies online at home is just not the same thing at all. Everybody dance and everybody dance and have a good time. This is friend and co-host Rabbi and Millennial Man Motions Entertainment LLC signing out till One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.